Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Policy Solutions webinar, where we will explore new findings in private sector innovation and resiliency during crisis. My name is Adam Goldstein. I'm a program officer for applied research here at the Center for International Private Enterprise, or CIPE, on the Policy and Program Learning team. Today, we will explore models of private sector resilience and innovation, showcasing ways that businesses can succeed and lead during crisis. First, a bit about CIPE. CIPE is a global organization working to strengthen democracy and markets and one of the core institutes of the National Endowment for Democracy. At CIPE, the Policy and Program Learning Team, or PPL, pursues answers to crucial questions about the direction of democratic market systems, highlighting areas for business leadership and reform. PPL's Policy Solutions series synthesizes new research findings that can intersect with our core areas of practice and existing expertise to produce strategic recommendations for our partner network and programs. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Brunilda Kosta, who will guide us through the findings of our new issue paper, Innovating Through Crisis, How Businesses and Entrepreneurs Survived and Thrived During COVID-19, which delves into the response of the Albanian private sector to the challenges posed by crisis. Dr. Kosta is a professor of operations management and project management at the Faculty of Economy, University of Tirana. Dr. Kosta has collaborated with CIPE since 2013 on issues concerning the business environment and fostering government relationships for effective public-private dialogue. Beginning in 2022, Dr. Kosta worked with PPL to understand business model changes and solutions that proved most successful in helping firms navigate the challenges of COVID-19 and adapt to the post-crisis economic landscape. Leveraging survey and interview data, Dr. Kosta has uncovered a wealth of information that goes beyond survival tactics, highlighting instances where businesses have not only adapted, but flourished. We are also fortunate to have CIPE Program Director for the Levant, Karim Shaaban, with us today. Karim has led and supported international development programs in the areas of economic growth, democracy, governance, and stabilization in conflict and transitional environments for over 20 years. He has been a principal member of projects funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, United Nations Development Program, and the U.S. State Department's Bureau of Democracy, Rights, and Labor, to name a few. Karim has extensive experience in developing effective partnerships with and enhancing the capacity of civil society organizations representing a variety of constituents, as well as parliamentary staff and parliamentarians. He is a graduate of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation's Institute of Organizational Management and holds the credential of IOM. He is certified by the Global Innovation Management Institute as an Innovation Management Associate and holds the prestigious credential of Certified Association Executive, which is designated by the American Society of Association Executives. With considerable regional and thematic experience, he will deepen our understanding of the research by sharing regional insights and perspectives of business membership organizations. Associations and chambers of commerce are vital venues for fostering collaboration, knowledge exchange, and mutual support, all of which are essential ingredients for resilience and innovation. We hope that the audience today will use these recommendations to inspire new thinking and strategies to foster private sector innovation and resilience. Thank you, and without further delay, I will hand it off to Dr. Kosta to share her research.
Okay, thank you, Adam, for your nice introduction. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are joining us. My name is Brunilda Kosta. I'm a professor and a researcher at the Faculty of Economy, University of Tirana. And I'm really excited today to share the main findings of the research study, which is supported from CIPE Policy and Program Learning, entitled Innovating Through Crisis, How the Albanian Businesses and Entrepreneurs Survived and Thrived During and After COVID-19 Crisis. Just briefly, what to expect from this presentation. At the beginning, I will share with you the main purpose and the research questions of the study, and then I will provide some contextual information for Albania so you can understand the framework and the settings that the businesses operate within the country. Just briefly, then I will jump to some aspects of the methodology which supported us to answer the research questions, and then directly to the main findings of the research study and the key conclusions. This research study aimed to investigate the successful strategies and business model adoptions implemented by businesses within the context of Albania in response to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. We try to answer three questions, research questions. The first one is, what type of changes in strategy and business model did the Albanian businesses undertake? The second one is, what type of strategies and solutions have proved most successful in Albania? And the third one is, to what extent has the COVID-19 crisis necessitated permanent changes in business strategy? So basically, these three questions help us understand the level of resilience that businesses have demonstrated during and after COVID-19 crisis. Allow me to briefly clarify what do I mean by business resilience. Business resilience refers to the ability of a business to react fast, so to survive and to recover from various crises and disruptions. The goal of business resilience is not only to survive during a specific crisis, but to emerge stronger, more adaptable, and more better positions for long-term success. So basically, business resilience does not only focus on coping with the crisis, but has the ability to support sustainability after the crisis. Albania is a small country which, based on the definition of the World Bank, is a developing economy. In 2019, it was hit by a severe earthquake, and from the evidences, 8% of businesses were directly impacted from that earthquake, which at the end of the day is a specific crisis as well. And then in 2020, another subsequent crisis, that of COVID-19, impacted the whole business community in Albania. From the national statistics, Albania has around 200,000 businesses operating, and the small, medium, and enterprises represent the backbone of the economy, comprising 99.8% of all enterprises, and which basically contribute into the labor force by employing 82% of the whole labor force. Based on the research study, 87% of all businesses in Albania were negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And from the evidences, the smaller firms and the younger firms were larger negatively affected compared to the larger ones. To answer the three research questions that I shared at the outset of this presentation, I conducted a thorough literature review of academic articles, national and international reports, and then we conducted a business survey with a representative sample of 115 firms. In addition of the survey, we really wanted to have some live stories about specific changes, strategies, and business model in different sectors. So basically, we selected 5 firms and we developed 5 case studies. To present the main findings of the report, we introduced to all the interviewed businesses with a long list of strategies. And then we categorize all the strategies into 5 groups. So basically, into the following slides, you will see the main findings divided by the first strategy, which is innovation. The second one is new partnerships. The third one is sales model. The fourth one is supply chain. And the final one is digitalization and technology. Let's start with the first one, with innovation. As displayed in the table, more than 50% of the businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic introduced new products or services and new delivery processes. And companies that sell to domestic markets have introduced product innovation to a higher degree than those that sell to international markets. Firms that serve international markets or customers have focused on improving their production and delivery processes. At the beginning, I said that business resilience is measured not only to the reaction that businesses have made toward COVID-19 pandemic. But in addition, it measures the success of that measure and then the sustainability of that measure. So we ask businesses if the innovation strategy has proved successful for their business and if they made the strategy permanent part of their business model. As you see on the top, 88% of businesses that have undertaken this measure, like innovation, accepted that this strategy proved successful, and 93% have made it permanent part of the business model. The second category is establishing new alliances, and it's important to mention that the new alliances are not formed only within the industry, but out of the industry as well. Businesses were specifically asked if they established new partnerships. So as you see from the first column of the table, around 50% of businesses established local partnerships for joint sales and deliveries. In addition, they joined online communities to reach new clients or customers and established closer links with partners, specifically with banks and business associations. This is a critical point which I'd like to touch base on in the following slide. But what is important here is that those businesses that operate only locally, like domestically, are more inclined to establish new partnerships within and outside the industry. And in addition, the COVID-19 crisis has changed the behavior of customers, and businesses in Albania have tried to adopt and to meet this change of the customers. The third category of strategy is sales model. Businesses were asked if they changed their sales model during the COVID-19 pandemic and if they take this as a permanent strategy for their business model. As seen from the table, more than half of businesses started making online delivery. They started to sell directly to customers because basically they wanted to be closer to the customers to understand exactly what is the change in their behavior so they can meet that new patterns of the customers. They started to sell online through social media and through smartphones and apps. And not as a surprise, but businesses that operate domestically have adopted sales models to a larger extent than those operating internationally. The fourth strategy is supply chain adjustment during the COVID-19 pandemic. As you see, businesses have tried to diversify their suppliers locally and internationally as well. In addition, they have changed the communication with their suppliers so to be more flexible. And they try to qualify additional suppliers so to build redundancy in the supply chain. This means that if businesses have focused into one or two suppliers, with the COVID crisis, they learned that they need to diversify and to widen their number of potential suppliers. And the final strategy is digitalization and technology during the COVID-19 pandemic. So businesses were asked if they digitize their business operations to some extent. According to the survey results, as you see, 73% of businesses digitize some core internal operations. So they are like core internal operations. 66% increase the use of advanced technologies in operation. And in addition, there is some increase of importance of data and technology. So to use that sophisticated data and technology, so to use that in business decision making. Non-exporting businesses have quickly embraced technology and digitalization, not only to survive, but as well to take advantage of the crisis as well. And as you see, and I'm not highlighting it, but the importance of such strategies and the sustainability of such strategies, even after the COVID-19 pandemic, has been critical in taking advantage into the market. And when businesses were asked about why did they spend money, why did they invest into technological developments within the company, they said more than 50%, around 60% accepted that they are investing into technology to make it a competitive advantage. So basically, technology has been widely utilized by businesses to gain a competitive advantage into the market. In addition of answering and analyzing the strategies to react and then to gain competitive advantage into the market, we were very interested to understand the relationship that businesses in Albania does have with the business membership organizations like business associations and business chambers. So one of the questions into the survey is if they have established closer connection with partners, including business associations. And as you see from the table, half of businesses accepted that they have established closer links with partners, including business association. And this is a critical finding because on the later slide, I will share with you how many of the businesses, surveyed businesses, are members of business association. Why is this finding important? Because during the COVID-19 pandemic in Albania, there have been some support from the government and some new information that businesses had to comply with, so to get this support from the government. And one of the channels or one of the actors that has had a critical role in distributing this information has been the business membership organizations. And when we ask businesses if they are a part of any of these business associations or chamber of commerce, only 30% accept that they are members of such business membership organization. Our result goes in the same line and in the same direction with other studies, like, for example, the World Bank Enterprise Survey has conducted another survey in Albania asking businesses if they were part of any business associations or chambers of commerce. Only 28% of them accepted that they were members. Interestingly, when we asked businesses if they were happy with the actions that the Albanian government undertook to mitigate and minimize the negative effects of the COVID-19, 72% said that they were not satisfied. Only 28% said, yes, we are satisfied. They were satisfied. And it is not a surprise that the majority of those businesses that were members of business associations and business chambers showcase a higher percentage of satisfaction. This is very important. And I really, later on, I really would like to the other colleague, Mr. Shaaban, to elaborate more on this, on how we can connect better relationship between businesses and business association and chambers of commerce, so to make this relationship win-win, like beneficial for both actors. And these are the main findings of the research study. And as conclusion, I do not want to repeat myself, but I would like to outline and highlight the main takeaway from this presentation and from this research study, which the key word to use is the business resilience. Business resilience during times of crisis is critical for survival and sustainability. Businesses that demonstrate resilience can effectively navigate through challenges, adapt to different changing circumstances, and emerge stronger. By implementing proactive strategies, as I mentioned, like embracing digitalization, technology, innovation, and keeping flexibility, businesses can mitigate risks and can seize opportunities even in the face of crisis. Building a resilient organizational culture, and culture is as important in these types of studies as well. And embracing continuous learning are key elements in ensuring long-term success and sustainability, regardless of the nature and the size of the crisis. Thank you so much. I'm more than happy and open to answer any of the questions from the audience and from colleagues as well. Thank you. I think I was quite efficient, Adam, right?
Absolutely. We'll now move on to Karim, who will share some additional regional insights and thematic expertise.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Kosta, and also to Adam, and I'd like to welcome all our guests today. The findings of the research are quite interesting, and they actually, I would argue that they would hold true to a lot of different areas across the world. We've done similar, we've supported similar studies across the Middle East and North Africa, and particularly in Jordan. And the results were very similar in terms of the results that you point to with regards to innovation, improved goods and services, new and improved delivery methods and processes, as well as those related to sales and suppliers. In the region, well, what I'm going to do is, first, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the overarching recommendations that the study provides for both the government stakeholders as well as private sector stakeholders. And then I would like to share some examples throughout the process from globally, from CIPE partners across the world, but with a specific focus on our partners across the Middle East and North Africa region. And then I would like to speak a little bit about widely held misconceptions with regards to innovation management, and share some best practices for business associations and chambers. So to begin with, I mean, one of the biggest areas and one of the recommendations of the study for government stakeholders was to provide financial assistance and streamline regulations. And CIPE partners across the world played a very key role in helping governments to craft their economic relief and stimulus packages, and to help assess them, as well as, and in addition to sharing information, critical information to their members, and help them to navigate the different packages and the bureaucratic processes. So COVID posed many challenges. We've seen governments in non-democratic environments use COVID to bully the private sector and basically extort them for donations and in-kind services. We've seen the private sector in some places being shut out of the debate and the discussions. And also we've witnessed quasi-government organizations, chambers who are quasi-government in certain countries, rubber stamp government stimulus and relief packages, and given it the appearance of inclusive private sector engagement. However, and we've also seen in more democratic countries, more transparency, more engagement, and frankly, more effectiveness. So CIPE partners across the world, as I mentioned, played a pivotal role in this process in assessing the needs and helping to advocate for private sector inclusion and effective policies. Some examples to share is, for example, the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation, which CIPE serves as the secretariat of, launched a study or a survey rather that focused on border custom clearance issues and highlighting those gaps that included the countries like Colombia and Brazil. We've seen in Kenya the private sector alliance proposing an economic response to the president in helping to launch a digital portal and a toll-free number for businesses and associations to access and make available for their members. In Ukraine, we've seen discussions that have been facilitated with the support of CIPE and its partners to provide, for example, on the issues of tax relief. Specifically in the MENA region, some of the examples that I would like to point to is the CIPE's partner, the Lebanese Transparency Association, who right from the start, from the onset of the pandemic, advocated for increased transparency in government procurement and in the development of relief packages. The Jordan Forum for Business and Professional Women, with CIPE support, launched a study highlighting the gaps in the government relief and stimulus packages as it relates specifically to women-led enterprises. focusing on the issue of access to finance. At the time, as part of the government programs, it was made certain funds were made available at preferential rates for micro and small enterprises. And digging into the issue further, the forum has discovered that, well, there's no data on women-owned enterprises, and therefore that was one of the root causes, which was quite interesting. And out of that effort gave birth to a national coalition. As a matter of fact, the only national coalition in Jordan that advocates for women-led enterprises, which still operates until today and continues with its efforts. The East Amman Industrial Investors Association, also another association in Jordan, conducted a gap analysis of looking at the chamber system and the representation of enterprises within the chamber system, and proposed measures that would increase private sector representation. As a result, there is a direct result of the practices and private sector inclusion or lack of private sector inclusion during COVID and crafting those messages. In Lebanon, the Lebanese Association of the Association of Lebanese Industrialists had great success, with the government adopting more than 90% of its recommendations to craft its economic relief and stimulus packages, and also had a pivotal role in making available funds, because as a result of COVID and the pandemic, the economic impact of the pandemic, there was an ensuing banking and monetary crisis in Lebanon. So the association played a pivotal role in making available funds for industrialists to export raw material and to continue their operations through its advocacy with the government and its partnership with other organizations that represent the interests of the private sector. In Tunisia, the IACE, the Institute Arab, the Chefs, the Enterprises, provided critical information and daily emails, informational videos, analysis on the economic impact and potential solutions. And it utilized media very effectively. And likewise in Egypt, CIPE's team in Egypt and partners provided critical real-time information to the association and chambers members, as well as to the wider private sector community and stakeholders. And with regards to the recommendation or the set of recommendations focusing on encouraging the government to drive innovation, we've seen a number of sectors that have really thrived during COVID. And again, business associations and chambers played a critical role in ensuring that. Some examples that come to mind is the Jordan Green Building Council, which is a national association here in Jordan for green enterprises that operate in the green built environments, construction sector, renewable energies, even banks, and so on. And the Jordan Green Building Council took COVID as an opportunity to suggest measures that would spur new economic activities and growth, for example. And some of the recommendations that came out of that study was green financing and special interest rates. Now, 4 years later, just a couple of days ago, some of these recommendations were actually adopted by the central bank here in Jordan, which are very exciting and will create many jobs, spur new economic activity, and create new opportunities for everyone. IDAMA, likewise, another CIPE partner in Jordan, advocated during the crisis and afterwards for a better rollout, or highlighted rather the gaps within the rollout of smart meters measuring electricity consumption. Jordan is a very resource scarce country, and the measures and what it proposed would lower the production costs for the industrial sector, which suffers from extremely high energy costs, and that would increase its production, overall, its production cost. So we've seen a number of examples and efforts to drive innovation in the form of advocacy from the private sector, driven and spearheaded by business associations and chambers, to the extent possible when they were included, and to the extent that they weren't included, they played a critical role in analyzing the government programs and conducting advocacy around that. Now, the second set of recommendations with regards really geared to the private sector, and I would, I would look at this as the geared towards the private sector, but also private sector stakeholders and the ecosystem and support organizations. And some of them in the study include developing a crisis management plan, diversifying supply chains, investing in technology, developing alternative revenue streams, and engaging in collaborative efforts. We have seen from our experience and our work with our partners across the Middle East and North Africa, and I would argue globally, a direct correlation between the private sector's ability to innovate and to ensure resilience with its membership in business support organizations like chambers and like business associations. Of course, the chambers and the business associations themselves have to be innovative and have to drive value, especially in times of crisis. And in turn, we've seen organizations that were able to adapt and capitalize on the gaps within that presented by the pandemic and offer value and innovate in the way that deliver this value. We've seen their members grow and we've seen them thrive, while we've seen others just frankly wither away and die that weren't able to do this and to adapt. So with regards to some misconceptions around the idea or the concepts around innovation management. Now, we often, when we think of innovation, we think of a eureka moment or an apple falling from the tree and boom, a great idea comes up, or what I would like to call the genius syndrome, that some members are gifted or some people are gifted and they only come up with good ideas and this is how innovation happens. And this is frankly not true. This innovation is a culture and it's a value and it's a managed process. And organizations that have this culture and have this value and have these systems and processes in place are the ones that are able to adapt during times of crisis. We've also, I'm sure we're all very familiar as well with the saying that necessity is the mother of all invention. This proverb goes back to Socrates and Plato, and it is very true that that necessity and urgency is a huge driver of innovation. But again, it's not on its own. It's when you have this as a culture within an organization, when you have this as a value, when you have systems and support processes that support this is when again you are able to adapt and to be flexible enough to take advantage of these crises and turn them into opportunities. So innovation as well, another misconception around innovation is that innovation, especially in our day and age, is that innovation involves digital tools and technology and automation and so on. And it is true to some extent, but innovation can also mean just a new way of looking at something, or a new process, or a new idea. It's or simply just a new solution. It doesn't necessarily have to involve automation or technology. So these are just some of the misconceptions that I wanted to address with regards to innovation management. Now, innovation is basically, to simplify it in the most simple terms, it's basically about learning and adaptation. right? So learning and having the agility to adapt, right? So now when we look at learning, there are, I mean, business associations and chambers have played and do play, continue to play a critical role in the learning process. But there are certain elements that we have to consider with regards to learning. For example, I'll give you an example from ASALA, a site partner in Palestine. It's the Palestinian Business Women's Association. This association represents micro and small enterprises that are in the sectors of handicrafts, cosmetic, textiles, food processing, and so on. Now, with CIPE's support, ASALA was able to help its members with product development. It set up an e-commerce platform for them. It helped them. It basically hired a photographer that went and literally took pictures of their products and helped them to market them and so on. It negotiated deals with delivery companies to help access this. And it also advocated with the central bank and with the banking sector for and the government for e-commerce e-payments solution. We've seen partners ranging, I mean, the list goes on and on, but just to mention a few of the areas that they focused on, they helped their members. Well, first of all, they adapted and they moved the learning to online learning to the members that can access online learning, and developed and they helped their members with learning around developing crisis management plans, providing trainings on design thinking, digitalization, lean management, excuse me, as well as information on incentive packages, as I mentioned earlier, and navigating those and so on. So with regards to learning, there are key aspects for business associations, chambers, and also entrepreneurs to take in mind. One of them is to promote knowledge sharing and access to resources, networking, and a support community of practice to encourage learning. And not to only track and also entrepreneurs and business associations have a fundamental responsibility to help track trends in the industry and in the sectors and to share information on that. Now, the good ones, the really good business associations and chambers don't only track trends, but they predict them and they help their members in foreseeing the future and giving them and providing them with the tools and the information necessary to be able to envision what the sector will be like in 10 years from now and work towards that. Provide trainings on innovation and workshops, recognize and celebrate innovation. The best innovators are organizations that value learning, right? So in order for you to value learning, you have to have monitoring and evaluation at the center of your internal systems and processes. Whether you're an entrepreneur or a business support organization. So you have to set KPIs, you have to establish, key performance indicators. You have to establish systems and processes where you're monitoring progress and taking these lessons learned and feeding those back into your planning process. You have to know your customers, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you have to know your market. If you're a business association or a chamber, your customers are your members. So you have to know them. You have to understand their needs. You have to understand the competition. You have to understand your place in the market and what value added you bring to that space, right? Also provide information and trainings on cash flow management, which was a huge issue for during COVID that faced a lot of entrepreneurs, with regards to cash flow management, business planning, utilizing technology, risk mitigation. And with regards to, and I'm going to close with this last section here, So with regards to, I spoke about learning, now with regards to adaptation and having the agility, some best practices for business associations and chambers based on observed experience and what we work with our partners to encourage as well is to create spaces where people can collaborate online or in person, whatever it is, but just spaces where people can come together and share lessons learned and collaborate. Also, using internally cross-functional teams. And this is something from experience, I mean, even within CIPE, that has served us very well. And it has really driven our own innovation and the innovation of our partners. Cross-functional teams. For entrepreneurs, it would be cross-sector collaboration. This is where we see a lot of very great and groundbreaking innovation. So it's applicable to both business support organizations and entrepreneurs alike. And this is really fundamental. I can't highlight this enough. Planning for everything. I mean, there's a metric somewhere that says, you know, if for every minute of planning, there's an hour saved of wasted resources and in terms of time, human resources and money. So planning, having a strategic plan, having a crisis management plan, having an effective stakeholder engagement plan and communications plan, an advocacy strategy. But, you know, planning is important, but you also have to plan for agility and flexibility within those plans to be able to meet different things. You know, on the governance level, I would say effective use of task forces and committees, term limits for board members, having a knowledge-based board, and really driving that culture of innovation within the organization and having healthy turnover. So having the right leadership and values not just for the sake of a branding platform or marketing, but values that really do translate into actions within the organizations and actions outside the organizations in its dealing and interaction with others. Creating partnerships is you mentioned that, and it's also, it applies very much to business associations and chambers alike through affinity programs and through creating new value and so on. And I have a lot more, but I'm just being cognizant of the time. I'm going to stop there to allow for questions. But I just want to end with this. You know, Peter Drucker, the father of business management, said that if you are not innovating, you're dying. So there's no such thing as being stagnant or just holding the status quo, because at the same time, it's, you know, whether you're an association or an entrepreneur or whatever, there's always a market, there's always competition, and somebody will come and do it even better than you do, and will, you know, and you know, in turn, your members or your customers will go towards that direction. So innovation is critical. And if a business or an organization is not a learning and innovative organization, that it is a declining organization. And thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Karim. I want to begin the Q&A with a question for Dr. Kosta. Based off of survey and interview responses, how can business membership organizations pitch themselves to attract new members during crisis?
Thank you, Adam, and thank you so much, Mr. Shaaban, for everything you shared on the research study and best experiences around the world. And I have a few points to add on. First, on Mr. Shaaban, I totally agree with everything you shared. And from the 5 case studies we have developed, the time was limited and I was not able to share the 5 case studies. But I learned some critical thing that entrepreneurs and businesses in general should take into consideration why they prepare to innovate. And I have made another study. And when businesses ask me, why should I innovate? Because I try to innovate and it has not produced a better performance for my firm. But it is not only about financial performance. Financial performance will not come in the short term, because innovation is a learning process. It takes time. And the performance of firm will be definitely increased in the longer run. So businesses should take this into consideration. The second one is entrepreneur's vision. I have met people that have no idea about the vision, about the strategic planning of their business organization. For me, but I have met as well women that are so in terms of the vision, they have very clear objective, they have a dream for their business. The second one is the culture of the organization. Culture and a positive culture cannot made within a day or within a month. Culture takes time, and it should start from the top management and then to the middle organization like the departments and then to the employees. The third one is capabilities. I have met organizations that had no clue how to prepare a crisis management, because after the COVID pandemic, they were like, we need to prepare crisis management plans, but we have no idea how to do that. The first important thing is that you need that you know that you need the crisis management plan, and then you need to ask help. The organization asks help, and they design this crisis management plan. So the capabilities of the organization are very important. And the fourth one, which Mr. Shaaban already mentioned, is continuous learning. It's not enough to invest in the knowledge of your employees or even in the top management for a specific frame of time. You need to do it continuously because the environment is very complex and it's very dynamic. You have to track the changes, otherwise you will fall behind. And then to go back to your question, and then I will respond with another question. As you saw from the results, a minority of businesses are members of business associations and chambers. When I asked them why, I really wanted to dive deeper and understand the root causes, why they are not members. The key response was that, why should I be a member? So basically, they are not taking any services from the business organizations and business associations. And then I go back to business chambers and business association to understand what they are offering to their members. And when I ask them, how many formal members do you have? They are not able to provide a response. Because in Albania, but in Western Balkan countries as well, there is this culture. There is not a well-structured, established procedure for taking membership. I'm not taking for all the business membership organization, of course, but the majority is that does not have as a procedure. They does not have a membership fee. Some of the members, like informal members, are taking services for free. Which organization should offer a service for free? In my opinion, from as an economist, but as well, like from a as a client, potential customer, as a business, I will not value as much as a paid service if that service is free. So the first thing is that we need to understand, of course, that during COVID-19 pandemic, even business membership organizations had been through a crisis. They are mostly working on project basis. They do not have sustainability in terms of future financial, but not only financial, but human resources as well to serve their membership. So there is a need to work not only with businesses itself, but mostly, as CIPE has done before in Albania and other countries as well, supporting business organizations, having a more well-structured governance structure, rules, legal procedures for the membership. And most importantly, we are talking about innovation, but the innovations should start from them. And Mr. Shaaban emphasized that they should share information. They should try to establish the types of platform for communication with their membership, and not only with their membership, but other potential members as well. They should learn from international experiences, and they should make this part of their business model. Because at the end of the day, even chambers and business association has a specific business model, which in my opinion should be innovative as well.
Great, thank you very much. A question for Karim. You mentioned that businesses and organizations that value learning innovate more. Can you speak more to the internal culture in those organizations and how we can encourage this attitude?
Absolutely. Well, learning, like I said, learning is a value, and this changing the culture, as Dr. Costa mentioned as well, changing the culture of an organization takes time, and it takes investment, and it takes leadership. You know, CIPE is through CIPE's engagement with its partners, we really bring a value added to the development programming, in the sense that we have really deep engagement and long sustained engagements with our local partners, so we are able to drive sort of these cultural changes that take a long time with our partners. So the one thing is that it takes time. It takes leadership. It takes dedicated leadership. It has to be identified as part of the strategy of the organization, and set in its systems and processes. And also the organizations, they have, you know, that value learning, have plans, have strategic plans, have, you know, KPIs, key performance indicators, have systems internally that monitor activities and programs and evaluate the progress. They value mistakes. They learn, they take mistakes as a learning opportunities. I mean, this is an obvious one. We all, just on a personal level, we learn more from our mistakes than anything else. So organizations are the same. They also, you know, organizations that value mistakes, learning from mistakes, and have these systems that feed information that goes back into the planning process. There's no other result than continuous improvement, and so on. But also on the learning end, there's also learning about your members and their needs and their sectors and the trends and so on. So it's a whole it's a whole apparatus, and it takes time. Just a quick comment on something, because it's really one of the biggest pain points of working with associations and chambers across in the developing world, is that, you know, the culture of getting services for free, the donor saturation and project-based sort of you know, modus operandi for associations and so on. I mean, with CIPE, we encourage our, you know, our association partners, and please use whatever funds that we provide in as part of, you know, our support to seed sustainable programs and services, you know. But at the end of the day, the proof is in the value. I don't care what they say, what the culture is. If you provide me, if I'm a business owner and you provide me value that's going to be translated into more market access and more revenues for me, I will pay 500, 1,000, 2,000 euros, whatever it is. I will pay whatever the value is, as long as you are giving me value. So they have to, you know, develop and communicate and deliver value.
Great, thank you very much. So I have a question from the audience, and I'll pose this to both of you, but we'll start with Dr. Costa. Is there a risk that planning for resilience is preparing to survive the last crisis and not the next one?
Yes, that's very, very interesting. And I'd like first to clarify that in Albania, businesses were not aware of the concept itself, like business resilience. They understood the concept that's something they have to cope with a crisis, and if they avoid from dying from that crisis, it was just a successful event for them. But at the end of the day, business resilience is not only surviving a crisis, but it's like surviving the crisis and emerging stronger after the crisis. So the response is within the definition of business resilience. If you are really planning for resilience, basically you are planning for in two different stages. First one is to survive the crisis, and second one is to position yourself better compared to before the crisis. So resilience is a two-stage process. It's not a single step. It's like a marathon. You do it and you revisit it again. You measure the KPIs, as Mr. Shaaban said, and then you revisit it again. It's not a single step or a document. It's a process, and it takes time. So if you prepare to be resilient, there is a huge probability that you will not die during the process. And Adam, if you allow me to answer the first question as well, because it's very important for the context of Albania. And thank you so much for your question, Mikra. It's for Albania, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, the reforms of the government has been quite slow, but all that buzz, all that developments from the private sector has, let's say, imposed the government to take some actions. And the first action, the first change is that finally we have a separate Ministry of Innovation, like Ministry of Economy and Innovation. I don't know if this is a good news or is a bad news in the long run, but in the moment it means that the government is paying a lot of attention to the innovation because of the results and the outcomes from the COVID-19 pandemic. The second one is that because of the digital platforms during the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, there was established a new association, e-commerce association, which basically was advocating with the business, with the government to have a strategy for e-commerce. And this is a huge development for Albania as well. There are some other negative implications, but these are positive, let's say, results from all the changes that the private sector has been pushing after the COVID-19. In addition, there are some novelties into the digital agenda for Albania, but not only for Albania, for the region as well. These are the three, let's say, main positive developments happening after the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm sorry, and something, we are talking and we are discussing all these findings in the framework of the COVID-19 crisis, but our intention is to go beyond that, is to have these lessons learned applied or adopted in other developing economies as well, and in other crises like the conflict crisis, the energy crisis, and other crises that the private sector is facing around. Thank you, and sorry, Mr. Shaaban.
No, not at all. I just wanted very briefly, just on the question of resilience, and again, very briefly, just on resilience, for me, resilience is about, well, three things. First of all, risk management, identifying risk, and then mitigating risk and managing risk. So we talked about diversifying, like cash flow management. It was huge. It was a big killer for a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses of all sizes. I mean, especially micro, small, and even medium enterprises, cash flow management, supply chains, and so on. So identifying risk, managing risk, mitigating risk, and then also innovating, right? So because resilience, it implies that you're tough enough to weather, the turbulence and the storms and so on. But also, if you're not innovating and you're, as I mentioned, if you're not innovating, then you're declining. And if you don't have an innovation plan and a pipeline of sort of ideas and you're a learning institution and identifying trends and so on, and you're not growing, never mind resilience, you're going to decline. So, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're about at time now, and I'm not seeing any additional questions from the audience. So I wanted to take a moment to thank Dr. Kosta and Karim for joining us, and the audience for viewing and participating. I think it was a great discussion. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Dr. Kosta, and to all our audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.